Dr. Dillingham, on page 3 of your testimony, you talk about some other countries do not accept FAA certification, conduct their own approval process, which can be lengthy. You don't list them. Could you provide a list?
Yes, Mr. DeFazio, we can provide a list, but I can tell you now that we spoke to a sample of manufacturers that represented a good proportion of those who export to foreign countries, and we asked them to tell us about their experiences and which countries seem to present the greatest problems right now and what was the nature of those problems. What we were told is that it differs by country, but in terms of the top countries where they are experiencing the most problems, Europe and the issues behind the EC were related to cost, that the cost of getting our products approved, and China was a top biller, and the issue for China was a combination of culture and their processes and procedures. You would have heard earlier about, matter of fact, you were the one who said it, about requesting
detailed engineering and design criteria and coming over and observing the manufacturing process, and of course they're not going to copy it. Yeah, I got that. Right.
But we'll provide you the output from our survey of the manufacturers that we talked to.
Okay. So that leads me to Ms. Baker. I know you're somewhat constrained, but he does point to a number of things, the processes of these other nations in terms of reciprocity. And in dealing with the EU, I note that they charge for certification, and we don't. And I know there is a provision of an appropriations bill that says that we have to authorize a charge. But wouldn't it be great if you had a tool to say, well, if you charge, we're going to charge you. So when Airbus wants certified, well, you're going to pay the same charges that Boeing has to pay in Europe. Wouldn't that be reciprocal, and might that not get their attention?
I'm going to skirt that a little. I think what
well,
really
I mean, let's say, how far along are you then in getting them to reduce these charges voluntarily out of the goodness of their heart? You know, do you expect that to happen real soon? Yes or no?
If we're successful by June, we're trying to get an agreement with them to make significant reductions in their charges.
Maybe it's a few more tools are necessary. And what about the Chinese, where we know what they're doing? What are we doing about that? I mean, they just want to be able to manufacture these things themselves. They're charging us. They send their people over here for 2 weeks for something that should take 1 day. We're required to pay for that. You know, are we working on some reciprocal arrangements with the Chinese that might get their attention?
We do. I think that we meet with them at least once a year, but recently we've been meeting with them quite a bit because we're conducting a shadow program of their ARJ-21 program right now.
Right.
When we are aware of where they've overstepped their bounds, we have intervened. Recently there was a situation where they were asking for much more information on the Robinson helicopter than they should be requiring just to operate the helicopter in their country. We intervened. We told them we did not feel that it was appropriate and in the spirit of our bilateral relationship, and they changed their process. And so we will then
good for you, and I hope you do a lot more of that. You know, we have the past testimony, which unfortunately wasn't available to be read or given here, but they're pointing to the fact that a lot of times inspectors only show up at an ODA once every couple of years. You know, that you don't have enough staff to really provide robust monitoring. I mean, do you feel comfortable about, you know, your capabilities? Are you using sort of targeting? I know that you try and target people who you think are problematic and put more scrutiny on them, but it seems to me there just aren't enough inspectors.
We use a systems approach to oversight, which I think is shown to be very, very successful in the manufacturing of aircraft. We've done that for many, many years. Rely on a system, and then our people will intervene at do spot checks. And if they find problems, then they will dig deeper and take the necessary action, whether it was a fine or if it was just a corrective action to change the procedures such they align with what the manufacturer is actually doing. We're evolving to that with engineering. As Ray testified, they have a lot of engineers. They're very competent at what they do. We just need to assure that they are very versed in the compliance with the regulations.
Okay. And just one other quick question. You know, when you give an ODA to a large organization, what is to prevent, in terms of your monitoring, what protections legally do we provide to the members of their ODA? I mean, you know, do you think the firewalls are adequate? Are there special protections that are afforded? I know we've got the hotline, but that's generally for operational things more than these sorts of things. Do you think there are enough tools out there to avoid undue influence by companies that are trying to meet deadlines for new technology, for instance?
Well, first you have to start with the premise that everyone is aiming for a safe product. Once you've passed that, then you look at the individuals within the company. If they feel unduly pressured, they can come directly to the FAA and ask that we retain an item and intervene. We also require...
Do they get protection at that point? Some whistleblower or something? Yeah, I would be right with you, Don.
He could if he
Yeah, well, Don, actually, the custom is that and I was very good before, that the ranking member gets a little more time, but, you know, yeah. Yeah, well, that's true. Yep.
He could if he went through the program for a whistleblower. When they come talk to us, it's usually not at that level. It isn't something, it's either just a misunderstanding or something that we can work out. The other thing I wanted to note is in order to be an ODA, you have to assure that there's separation in the company and the person who's in charge of the ODA has a high enough ranking within the company that they aren't unduly influenced by.
We'll cut off at that point since the gentleman from Alaska has something urgent to add.
Okay.
Gentleman's time has expired.